The Volkswagen Passat, a real cruiser, four-door sedan, very quiet, very refined. Let's take a look. I just dropped off my friend Brent. We had a power lunch. We were discussing my current spreadsheet and all the formulas that went along with it. My Outlook calendar's full, but I've made some time for you today to discuss the interior of the Volkswagen Passat. The plastics, the knobs and buttons and switches all have this very exact feel to it, a very consistent feel that I feel comfortable with every single day. There's nothing here that's going to shock me. There's nothing here that's going to excite me. In fact, this is the driving equivalent of taking Sominex at night. I may never wake up, and that's exactly how I feel driving this and being on the interior. I will say it is a comfortable space. I can put 4 people in here. The Fender branded audio system, which was designed by Panasonic, has a very bland texture to it, the way that I like. Any music I play won't raise any red flags or send up any alarms because it's just average in every single way. Everything else in here has the most traditional conservative look to it, right down to the plastic wood trim. The piano gloss black plastic has an element of class and sophistication, something my local car wash will handle cleaning for me. When I'm done with my meetings for the day, I like to decompress and put my foot on the dead pedal. It's comfortable. The seats adjust as you would expect. Back and forward. Back and forward. Back and forward. Back. Underneath the North American VW Passat. This is manufactured in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and most of the components and parts are made in America or North America. I'm taking a different direction with this video because it's a different type of car. This is all new for 2019. This is a 2020 model. And the strange part about that is the underbody, or the architecture it's built on, is identical to the last generation, the PQ46, which was shared with the Volkswagen CC and a few other vehicles. They did not move this to the new platform, the MQB architecture, which is on the Golf, the Tiguan, pretty much all their new cars. You might ask yourself, why did this get left behind? Well, that's where this video is a bit different. From a business perspective, VW looked at the Passat and saw that this segment, specifically this car, is not selling like it used to. So why put all that money and time and investment in retooling a factory, creating a new model that potentially is not going to sell? However, they have a strong brand or a strong model that people know. People know the Passat. So to drop that, just to completely eliminate it, could do the brand damage in the long term. So they took the most cost-effective way to carry on the brand, to wait out things, to see how the economy goes. So what you get is a car on the outside has new sheet metal, new doors, new fenders, new hood, bumper, and a slightly restyled interior, but what you get underneath is the same as a car that's pretty much 8 to 9 years old at this point. So what you see is a strut front, you see all the same panelings, the coverings, the brakes, the independent rear suspension in the back, almost everything is the same. Now, they use a 6-speed torque-converted automatic here with a new torque converter and new tuning, and a 2-liter turbo direct injected motor. And that's all you get is a 4-cylinder in the Passat. You can't get a V6. So you question, why would you buy a car like this when you know there's new cars where manufacturers are putting a lot more money in it to compete? Why would you buy this? So let's get this out on the road and I'll kind of talk you through that. the Volkswagen Passat. The 2-liter turbo feels like a majority of the eco turbos that are on the market. However, Volkswagen does a great job with tuning, and I feel like a broken record saying this. The smoothness in power delivery is great. It feels like you always have enough power no matter where you're at in the rev band, and you put your foot down and you feel this instant surge without it being a herky-jerky experience. The only time you're going to notice any delay is right off the line. There's that small bit of lag before it gets going. It's not uncommon with most of the cars of this type. The transmission is a torque-converted automatic. This is not a dual clutch. It's not a CVT. It's only got 6 gears too, which is great because you don't notice gear hunting. However, the major problem with this is when I first started driving it, I thought it was a dual clutch. It feels like it goes into a neutral state, or there's some strange like programming with the torque converter where you kind of get off and get off the throttle and the car just seems to hesitate or buck or jerk, and you get on the throttle and it kind of like doesn't smoothly engage the transmission into the gear that you're getting into. And I notice more and more as you're kind of creeping around in traffic, like if you're rolling to a stop sign. And this is not good because a car like this, you don't want to be distracted by the transmission, and oftentimes I am, to the point where I think there's something physically wrong with it. Now, when you're on the highway, mostly on and off the throttle, just going around town where you're not in a stop and go situation, you barely notice it. The tuning and the way that it shifts is always smooth. Now, the big thing that people are going to want to know about in a Passat, we know what this is. It's a last generation vehicle. It should feel exactly the same, and that's 100% true. This car feels, in terms of ride quality, right on par with the last generation Passat. The tires have a lot of squirm in them, so it's great. There's a lot of compliance in the rubber. So when you go over bad pavement, you feel like there's enough rubber underneath you to soften some of the blows. It's not a very jarring experience. There's a lot of pitch. There's a lot of dive, specifically under braking. There's a lot of kind of forward motion, and all the body motions have a little bit more roll, and that's totally fine. You're not looking for any remotely type of sporty experience from this. However, some of the other car manufacturers are trying to inject a little bit more into steering quickness, into responsiveness, and the Passat is definitely on the softer side of all those. So that's something just to be aware of. Now, everything else about driving the Passat, and I've thought about this. There's never a time where I'm in here where I'm like, well, get me out. But there's never a time where I'm thinking about, wow, I have to take a drive, or I'm really looking forward to operating this, because it is the driving equivalent of, it's just a rolling piece of camouflage. You blend in with every environment. Every time I park this somewhere, I can't find it. It is just such a very methodically designed, boring appliance. And I think that's where it might attract certain people that are looking for that. You go to work from 9 to 5 and you leave at 5 on the dot. You have every single item of your day planned out. You have everything documented, and you want a very sterile, very plain Jane experience. That's what the Passat offers. Now, again, I talked about in the interior as a joke. Everything works. Everything feels good in here. There's nothing that is wrong with it, but I can't say that it inspires much other than writing a check and just driving off the lot. There's not a lot to look forward to here. So let's get into the final thoughts and talk about kind of what this is and what it isn't. Final thoughts on the VW Passat. We've looked at the exterior, the interior, the underbody, took it for a drive. The only thing suspect is some of the transmission behavior. That's about it. But I thought about this long and hard, and I know the business case for why this still exists and the form that it exists in, and I have kind of one phrase that sums up my whole experience. It's like white bread, and it's borderline stale white bread. It is so devoid of anything, really any type of emotion, any type of feeling, any type of design flair to it, that there's no possible way that I could recommend it to anybody in this trim level for 30,000+. But if you were getting this as a base trim level, or if you were buying them as fleet vehicles or company cars, makes sense. It's got a big back seat, good trunk space. But other than that, there is really nothing going on here for this that's special that it would at least make you think, oh, I have to have this, over some of the other companies that are really trying to make their sedans stand out or feel a little bit more special. And this just doesn't feel that way. In fact, this is one of those few cars where I'd say, since it's the same as the previous generation and mechanically almost, just buy it used. Buy one of the older ones used and call it a day if you have to have a VW. Now, I know VW is not going to let this thing go. It's too big of a nameplate to let it die in the future. But as it stands right now, they need to put a lot more money in this to make it competitive with what else is out there. And I don't know that they want to spend that kind of money to do it at this point. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.